and thanks for tuning into the show that goes around the continent to bring you stories near and far. I'm Joke Rogers at Channels Television here in Lagos, and I'm joined by Vincent McCory from the Voice of America in Washington.
Thanks, I'm Vincent McCory at the Voice of America. Happy to be with you again for another edition of Africa 54. Let's start off with the latest from Nigeria. Joke Rogers in Lagos brings you that story.
As Nigeria joins the rest of the international community to mark the 2023 World Breastfeeding Week, a call is going out to policymakers and employers of labor to support nursing mothers to exclusively breastfeed their babies. The Federal Ministry of Health, along with development partners in Abuja, began the week-long exercise with a road walk to educate women on the need to exclusively breastfeed their babies for at least 6 months.
Officials of the Federal Ministry of Health and development partners in the health sector gather at the premises of the Ministry of Health as they prepare for a road walk to mark the 2023 World Breastfeeding Week. The roadshow is to raise the awareness of nursing mothers, employers of labor, and policymakers on the need to promote exclusive breastfeeding for at least 6 months.
You must exclusively breastfeed your child for 6 months for you to get the best out of that breast milk. When you breastfeed a child for 6 months exclusively, the immunity of that child is built against any sicknesses, any diseases, any infection.
They want to encourage breastfeeding up to 2 years, but essentially exclusive breastfeeding for 6 months, and then breastfeeding up to 2 years with complementing feeding for the child.
Distributing flyers as they go, the health officials advocate the need for employers of labor to provide an enabling environment to support breastfeeding mothers in their places of work.
We are calling on governments, we are calling on employers. We already know the benefits of breastfeeding. The next thing we need to do is to match our knowledge with action. Match our knowledge with action by one, optimal paid leave, up to 6 months or even more for working mothers so that they can continue to breastfeed. Ensure that our workplaces are breastfeeding friendly. Ensure lactation and breastfeeding rooms in all our offices so that women, when they return from their leave, can continue to breastfeed.
Policymakers, employers, and managers should set aside a breastfeeding cubicle for these nursing mothers.
According to the 2022 UNICEF report on infant nutrition, an estimated 2 million babies in Nigeria suffer from acute malnutrition, with 32% of children under the age of 5 having stunted growth. The report further states that only 34% of babies are exclusively breastfed by their mothers. Health workers and nutrition experts who join in this roadshow are hoping to scale up infant nutrition in Nigeria by creating awareness on exclusive breastfeeding and pushing for policies that will encourage working-class mothers to breastfeed their babies.
I'm now being joined on the program by founder of Child Health Advocacy Initiatives, Lola Alunge. Many thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So what's the significance of this year's theme, Enable Breastfeeding, making a difference for working parents?
Yeah, like we said, breast milk is the gold standard for nutrition. And exclusive breastfeeding means breastfeeding without water for 6 months. The World Health Organization target is to actually achieve 50% exclusive breastfeeding rates by the year 2025. And how do we achieve that? There must be an enabling environment, which starts from the family, to the society, to the government. We say breastfeeding is a collective responsibility. It is not just for the family, which means everybody must come on board to support the breastfeeding mother and create an enabling environment. And that starts with even like the health workers, the family, the society, and government. That was why even this year we had to identify some organizations who have gone ahead to make sure that they support breastfeeding mothers. And I'm happy Channel TV was one of the family-friendly, breastfeeding-friendly organizations. We thank them so much for that, and we want other organizations to emulate that as well.
Right. Some mothers watching at this time are thinking, about the factors there might be to help her actually breastfeed her baby properly, to ensure that they have adequate consumption, to have the adequate nutrients, because they say that babies are exposed to a lot of infection and all they need, including water, is inside breast milk. So, what kind of factors, can eliminate all these consumption?
Yeah, I think the mother needs to, first of all, get herself prepared to breastfeed. And that starts from pregnancy. Attend the antenatal classes regularly. And my organization also has a group what we call Childhood Advocacy Initiative, Nutri-Moms. They're like nutrition moms, where we give them all the support they need on a daily basis. They have a lot of information given to them about how to express milk, how to breastfeed, how to position and attach a baby to the breast. So they need to join a lot of support groups, and we hope more groups can come on board. We are actually getting more even out of beyond Lagos states, many states and Nigeria. Many of the mothers are there. We're trying to see how we can get more of them to come on board and more organizations to come together and set up support groups for mothers to breastfeed.
Let's talk about, getting the techniques right, getting the positions right. I don't know if we have enough lactation technicians or specialists in Nigeria. I do know they have a lot of them abroad, to be able to teach and guide the new mothers on, how to get these things right, because once they leave the hospital, they have to start, practicing maybe, guesswork when they get home.
Thank you for that question. It's very important. We have a statement where we say breastfeeding saves lives and it saves money. It's a very serious issue. And truly, we don't have adequate lactation consultants around. And that is why even, for example, during the week, breastfeeding, we visited one of the hospitals. And we were like, all the mothers asking questions. Some even have delivered already. They attended antenatal classes, but they still don't have that information that could help them breastfeed successfully. My organization is trying to work with quite a number of hospitals now to see how they can set up breastfeeding centers where the health workers there will be properly trained, so the mothers can go there easily and get all the information they need. The issue of antenatal class is not enough for breastfeeding. There must be a dedicated center to support these mothers, just like we're also asking for support groups. In many advanced countries, they have many mother support groups where they can go and then get all the support they need. But we are actually trying to work closely with government to set up breastfeeding center in all general hospitals in Nigeria.
Right. Founder of Child Health Advocacy Initiatives, Lola Lunge, thank you for your time today on Africa 54.
Thank you.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54, and check out our headlines 24/7 on viewafrica.com. After the break, authorities in a Uganda refugee settlement say denial of food and basic needs drives an increase in suicide attempts. Welcome back to Africa 54. I'm Vincent McCory in Washington. Polorinya refugee settlement in Uganda is reporting high numbers of suicides and suicide attempts by the people who live there. Organizations and individuals who work with the refugees say denial of food and the failure to meet basic needs are the main causes. Alima Athumani reports from Obongi District, Uganda.
Since the start of this year, the Lutheran World Federation, a non-profit working with refugees in the Polorinya settlement in Uganda's Obongi district, has recorded 1 suicide and 20 attempts by refugees. 18-year-old James Wubam came to Polorinya with his uncle. He says his uncle's wife would deliberately deny him food. He also said he found it difficult to ask his uncle for basic needs, including school requirements. He doesn't have any siblings to share these issues with, and this has put him in a deep depression.
I thought of hanging myself. I went to a local club with my friends and consumed some alcohol. When I got home, I contemplated suicide.
According to the Lutheran World Federation, between January and September 2019, Palorinya recorded the most suicide cases of all refugee settlements in Uganda, with 29 suicides attempted and 13 completed. In 2022, the Federation says 1 suicide and 45 attempted suicides were reported in the settlement. Isaac Oturi, a clinical psychologist with the Lutheran World Federation, says most of the 20 suicide attempts so far this year involved young people triggered by unmet needs.
In a settlement here, their hands are tied. You survive only on the given items. Now you can't make it for yourself. Now to make it worse is that even those who are in position to work, there is very few or less or minimal livelihood opportunities that would help them to earn a better living.
Of the more than 1.5 million refugees in Uganda, most of whom come from South Sudan, Palorinya hosts 123,000. In July, the World Food Programme will begin targeting food and cash aid to refugees based on need. Fearing they will be left to fend for themselves, some refugees have considered suicide. Michael Gale said that when he found out that his name was listed under those whose families would not get food, his wife left him. Left to fend for 4 children, he contemplated a quick escape.
They will call you Baba when they want to eat, but there is no food, there is nothing. I cannot go find labor work from people. I sit in one place. It is too much, and it is better for me to hang myself.
To ensure each case is attended to in time, agencies have set up para-counselors, also known as suicide gatekeepers. Para-counselor Dianga Betty Kenyi says they have to depend on second parties to get help for those attempting suicide.
The neighbor will run to us and give us that information, and then we go and access how the client is.
With little funding and just 1 clinical psychologist in the settlement, many victims do not get the support they need. Halima Athmani for VA News, Obongi District, Uganda.
Have you been throwing your cans away? Well, you might just be discarding something that's valuable, at least for this Nigerian artist who says he loves to explore eco-friendly products and is willing to pay to get those items. As an environmental artist, Chibike Ifedelichukwu creates beautiful works of art by weaving discarded aluminium beverage cans into portraits.
Growing up with his grandmother, Nigerian artist Chibike Ifedelichukwu would weave raffia strings into sleeping mats. Then he went to university and became more conscious of the environment and started using the same weaving technique but with a different medium, beverage cans. Aluminium is one of the most environmentally friendly metals because of its sustainability in capacity to be infinitely recycled. However, they come with their own eco price if not properly discarded or upcycled in friendly ways.
From industrial activity to individual human activities, waste are being generated on daily basis and discarded with little or no thought the effect it has on the ecosystem, our environment. So I choose the path of collecting this waste and adding value to them, which I called upcycling.
Ifedelichukwu starts by cutting up beverage cans that he already picked up and disinfected, then cuts them into desired inches depending on what he wants to work on. He then weaves a plain canvas first with the shiny part of the beverage can before filling it in with the colored part to bring out his desired pattern or portrait. A piece of his art can take from 200 to 1,000 beverage cans, depending on the size. Ifedelichukwu has sold several dozens of his pieces, which go for as high as $1,000 because of their lifespan and durability.
The work is a lifetime piece because one is produced with a metal aluminium, which has a long lifespan, and that of plastic, which we know that it has a duration of close to 100 to 200 years to decay.
The 37-year-old says he sometimes pays people a token to keep their beverage cans for him or scavenge for them. But when he scavenges himself, people sometimes call him a madman.
Basically, you know, when you are in a waste bin to collect waste, we face the challenges of people addressing you like he doesn't know what he's doing, or they will see you as a somebody. As a madman, for them, not for me, because I know what I'm doing.
So far, he's done over 30 group exhibitions, won several awards on saving the environment, and will be exhibiting in London later this year.
It's time to go on a short break. As we do, we remind you to visit our website, channelstv.com, for news and programming around the clock. You can also find us at youtube.com/channelsweb. Still to come, a Nigerian music producer uses artificial intelligence to help artists reinvent themselves. Details in a moment.
Welcome back to Africa 54. I'm Vincent Makori in Washington. Conservationists in Kenya are petitioning the state to enact solutions to avoid the worst impact from climate change, including record drought and flooding. Activists say directives such as Kenya's lifting of a ban on logging is reversing gains made to lessen extreme weather linked to climate change. Victoria Munga reports from Nairobi, Kenya.
Sote Lokotos has lived in this shelter in Baringo County, Kenya, for a decade now. Before this, she lived with her family on a farm. One night in 2013, water from a nearby lake engulfed their home. Fortunately, everyone escaped.
The water swept away everything. It flooded our house. I was separated from my other children. I live with my husband here and only one child.
Families like Lokotosis are bearing the brunt of climate change. It has affected millions around the world and is being felt every day in Kenya, where disasters like flooding and droughts have become more common over the past 20 years. Activists are demanding the Kenyan government commit to real solutions to prevent and minimize such catastrophes.
We are trying to provide solutions and push for policy to act on, for instance, loss and damage.
Kenya's President William Ruto lifted a 6-year ban on logging in July to create more jobs in timber harvesting. To conservationists, the decision undermines efforts to mitigate climate change, as trees store carbon dioxide that contributes to global warming. But timber traders like Michael Oginga praise the move.
Let them lift the ban so we can at least go back to our normal business. Business is low. I can get one customer a week. I could get about 10 customers a week before the ban. This is what we depend on for food.
Global temperatures have already risen an average of 1.1 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, according to the United Nations. Droughts have become more chronic in the Horn of Africa, displacing millions of people, sinking them into poverty and hunger. Aid group Minority Rights Group International is trying to help villagers in Kenya cope with the changes.
They need to adapt, so they need to change the ways they use soil. They need to make conscious choices around farming practices, how they cultivate, how to plant trees.
Environmentalists say by adopting new policies at both the governmental and the individual level, Kenya can guard against many of the worst impacts of climate change. Victoria Amunga for VOA News, Nairobi.
Delays equals denial. Act in time.
For many, artificial intelligence, also known as AI, can either be a blessing or a curse. But a Nigerian music producer, Eclipse Nkasi, has embraced AI into his craft and now sees it as an opportunity for artists to reinvent themselves and do their work better and quicker.
When artificial intelligence apps started spreading in Nigeria's music industry, Eclipse Nkasi thought his days as a producer were numbered. Then he took a step back, saw there were opportunities as well as threats, and used the technology to generate a whole new Afrobeat album in his studio on the outskirts of Lagos. In the past, it'll have taken him thousands of dollars and up to 3 months to compose the tracks, recruit the musicians, record the performances, knock them into shape in a traditional studio, and get them out to fans. But this took him about 3 days and $500. Nkasi and 3 friends switched on OpenAI's ChatGPT program and set it to work, helping them create the 9-track album Infinite Echoes.
There were 2 or 3 things that were very important to me. One, I wanted to find out what was possible with AI, so which means there were several parameters I needed to test. Songwriting, production, voice creation, and so on and so forth. At the same time, I was trying to test the efficiency of the tool, so in terms of timeline, which is why we worked with like a very strict 3 days time, and as ridiculous as it was, we made the whole project in 3 days. So as a result of these parameters that I was testing, one of it was voice synthesis or voice creation, like some people might call it. And that's how we birthed what became Maya.
Meanwhile, the team used another AI tool to generate the tunes. Nkasi recorded some vocals and fed them into yet another app, which transformed his vocals into the voice of the album's generated singer. That virtual singer is called Maya Blue, who appears in front of her audience online as a computer animation.
When it comes to AI and music, one of the biggest things it does is that for people who are music minded but don't necessarily have the skill set or the talent in quotes, so you can't really sing but you understand music, you know what good music sounds like, you have a fair chance of actually creating music that matters, because there are tools now that you can impute, you can guide, and ultimately it would interpret the ideas that you have. And that's a new kind of artist. And I think that this doesn't take away from what other people are doing. What it's doing is empowering even more people.
The technology is already transforming the music industry and could have a positive impact on production values and other technical sides to the recording process. But there are still lots of uncertainties and areas, including copyright, that need to be considered and developed.
Introduced in Nigeria by the U.S. Peace Corps in the 1960s, baseball is slowly becoming a sport of note thanks to the efforts of a few dedicated lovers of the game. Timothy Obiezu reports from Ekiti State.
A weekly baseball and softball training for school kids is underway in Ekiti State in southwest Nigeria. Baseball coach Oluwafemi Aino started the training camp in 2014 with only 5 baseballs, 2 softballs, and a bat. Now, his team, Ekiti Little League Baseball and Softball, has drawn participants from 6 schools in the state, and Aino says there's not enough playing fields.
Baseball is not known anyway. We know, like, the way it was known in the US and other part of the world, but because of the passion I have for the game, I don't have any option than to just push it. And the major setback of the game is gear and equipment.
In 2002, Aino quit football to join the first baseball training in Ekiti State. And despite many challenges over the years, he says his passion for the game has only grown. In January of this year, he attended Wendell State Umpire School in the United States as part of his quest to bring baseball back to Nigeria.
One thing that struck my mind then was they said Little League Baseball is the largest youth organization that have youth participants all over the world. And I tried to Google it, and I knew it was true. And that one really ignites my passion and my, energy to just venture fully into the game.
Nigeria fielded baseball teams in the 1999 and 2003 All-Africa Games, winning silver medals in both competitions. In April, Nigeria hosted West Africa's first Little League baseball tournament, which it won. Kunle Adeyemi, the general manager of Ekiti State Sports Council, says such competitions, along with help from local politicians, could usher in new opportunities for baseball in Nigeria.
I can assure you that this new governor, Abayomi Oyebanji, will do everything possible to make sure that all these kids don't fall off. He will make sure that they get to the peak of their career in baseball and softball.
Youngsters like Philip Fagbenro say they have big dreams.
In the nearest future, I see myself to excel with my teammates, every one of us, to go higher, higher, higher. In the USA, everywhere around the world.
Emmanuel Olayinka says all they need is an opportunity.
If we should be given a chance, which I believe it will be possible, we would like to go out as a team to play outside the country. I think that is a great chance. We are hoping for that.
But first, they'll be working hard to win local sponsors and make the game more popular at home. Timothy Obiezu for VOA News, Abuja, Nigeria.
Well, and that's our show for today. You can find all the continent's top news and world news online at voaafrica.com. Check it out. I'm Vincent McCory in Washington. Channels Television has our last word.
We look forward to bringing you another show next week. To remember that channelstv.com is your source for news and other programming. I'm Joke Rogers. Thanks for watching and goodbye.